Welcome to the Self-Service Generation podcast, where we explore how technology impacts, improves, and enables the customer experience that we all expect from businesses and organizations that we engage or work with. Don't worry, we only keep it to 20 minutes, so hopefully you'll find it interesting. Thanks very much.
Welcome to the Self-Service Generation podcast with me, Gavin.
And me, Steve. How you doing?
Not too bad, I think. Just about getting through the week. I know you've been busy.
Oh God, yeah, flat out this week. I've got a holiday. You always pay the price for having a holiday coming up. You're like, oh, I've got to get all this stuff done. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
All the things you have to suddenly squeeze into a lot less time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Make sure it's not carnage when you come back.
Another 2 weeks worth of work you've got to fit into Friday.
Yeah. Well, if you plan it right, you can do a little bit before and a little bit after, right? Isn't that how it works?
Nah, because there's never any room in the day anyway. So it's, yeah, whatever. Never mind.
Is the laptop banned on holiday?
Sorry?
Is the laptop banned on holiday?
No, it's coming with me. No choice, I'm afraid. No choice. No, because off air, we were talking about stuff that's come in this week that are like really potentially big deals and things, and you just go, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna have to see them through over my holiday because I can't avoid them. It's too significant.
Especially at the moment, like it's definitely like maximizing the opportunities that you have coming in is going to be important for everybody, I think. So today, I think we mentioned in the last podcast, we're going to be talking about getting to know and understanding your customer. It's been a big conversation for us, and always been a conversation for us. And actually, we've internally here spoken on our podcast before, and had a few different opportunities to discuss different areas around it. One of which is including consumer duty, which is quite a large kind of part of the financial sector in regards to making sure businesses are doing best by their customers.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do that, ultimately understanding your customers is going to be a key part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And and I think most organizations think they know that, and I think they think they know the customer, but there needs to be more work on that. I think that's the bit that you guys specialize in quite significantly.
Yeah, we definitely do. And I think for us, when we talk about the customer, I think both of us, we're very much, the customer is both the customer that the business serves externally, so the people who come and make a purchase or service users, as well as staff and team members and people who work within the business. For us, they're all classified as customers in our eyes. They're all people who need to be considered in the day-to-day of the work that we're doing.
But the thing is, there's a load of terminology that gets bandied around our whole industry, really. So you've got like UI, UX, CX, all these things. I mean, understanding that in its own right as a business.
Yeah.
What's the difference? What's that all about? There
are many blog posts written on the difference between UX and UI, as well as or CX and UX. So for me, customer experience is kind of the big pool, is the big thing that surrounds it. So customer experience is everything from before the person becomes a customer all the way through to becoming a customer and an ongoing experience, from pricing, from brand, from visibility, all the way through to understanding the customer, then becoming a customer, to understanding what the customer process and the customer journey is through that experience.
Yeah.
The UX part of that, or the user experience part of that, is very much the platforms and the digital focus towards that customer experience and the digital touch points, with the caveat that the UX has to consider the CX, otherwise it's not really UX. If you're going to design an experience, whether it's a mobile app, whether it's a website, you have to take into consider all the touch points that customer has gone through. And you always have to consider the context around why that experience exists.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I'm designing a mobile app for an insurance customer, I have to understand the mindset of that customer. I have to understand at what point in that journey that customer is in the user journey with that insurance company, when I'm designing that experience, but also when I'm analyzing that experience as well. So One of the tools in the UX tool belt is the ability to be able to see things like heat maps of how people use experience, and also be able to see analytics of how people use an experience. On their own, they're useful, but if you can see someone's done something, all it really does is tells you someone's done something. And
not what they intended to do.
Anyway, you don't understand what they necessarily what they intended to do. You can make assumptions on that experience. Oh, they must have done this for this reason, and that's why you need to start having those conversations with customers and conversations with people, and do your user testing with real customers to understand kind of actually now you add that context as to why those decisions are being made or why their interactions are happening. And then another term that also gets thrown in the mix obviously is UI. Which is sometimes confused between whether UX and UI are two different things. For me, again, UI is a small pool that sits within UX as a whole. So your UI is the visual elements of an experience, whether it's a website or whether it's a mobile application. So the button designs, the button designs, the button color, the button shapes, images, how you structure text. Those will form like the user interface, but you have to consider the research you've done from a UX and a customer experience point of view to make sure that you're designing the right UI experience to make it work.
Yeah, that makes sense. So there's
kind of a cascade of things.
Look, I think what you're pretty much saying is that there's massive overlaps between each of those things, but ultimately the umbrella term of CX is where the others fit in. But you can't do decent UX if you're not considering the customer experience. Because the user experience is going to have to interact with the customer experience and understand where they go next once they've left this digital touch point. Because we've got loads of multi-channel journeys, we do voice and chat and stuff like that. So, voice is another part of that, and that's another user interface actually. Even if it's not visual, it's a verbal, but it's still a digital interface, actually an analog to digital interface, but let's not get too rolled into that. But it's part of this CX, the customer experience. But you're saying that the consideration of UX is not necessarily always taken into account for the customer experience as well.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of the time you'll see it where the UX element is brought in is purely focusing on looking at the analytics of a platform, looking at download figures, looking at how many people are landing on certain pages, how many people are going from one page to another, how much time are spending on pages, and how people are going through an experience, and kind of sometimes decisions are made just on that level of information. And you might be able to work out actually there's a reason that is that actually we forgot to put a button here. They can't actually get to this page. That's why they don't. So you can make some sort of technical fixes from that, but from fixing something which is broken from an experience point of view, you can. There's some things you can tweak based on experience, but really you should be going back through and running through some user testing to actually get the context around why those decisions are being made. If you're going to do that user experience piece properly, it's actually involving the user. And we call it human. Another way we look at it is human-powered design. I think that's something we want to bring a real big focus in, because there's issues around user, there's issues around customer. It's about the humans that work within as part of that business ecosystem, the customer and your team. They're the people that have to be considered, and you have to involve them in the process of you're making those designs, decisions.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, to be honest with you, we have something similar with the chatbot side of stuff. So if you stick a chatbot on a website, that chatbot will be asked loads of random questions and different stuff. But what might come out of that is content that doesn't exist on your website. Because you'll guess what that content should be, and it's the same principle, isn't it? So if the chatbot goes, I need to know, have you got information about X? And X doesn't appear anywhere, and you just go, we keep getting asked about X, and we don't deliver an answer for that, or we haven't got that content anywhere to signpost somebody to, or whatever it is. You've lost a valuable piece of information, and the only way is that human has interacted and told you that they actually need this information. you know.
I mean, on the flip side of that, you could argue that chatbots have the opportunity to be one of the most powerful parts of customer research, because
they're
you kind
natural.
of, obviously, to some extent, obviously, when people are calling up, as long as you're logging what the conversations are and you're logging what the questions people are asking, you can then utilize that to inform the decisions you're making from a chat point of view as part of your research piece. But also, if you build those experiences and people are asking questions, what we need to make sure we're doing is logging those questions that customers are asking.
That's
so we
right,
can then inform the data that we're going to have and the information that we need to collect. And that's actually a really powerful tool for a business, because what it means is they have a system in place that's going to enable them to grow and improve, and less likely to lose customers because the information isn't accessible, because you're going to grow and build a system that's always going to be able to grow and make sure it can respond to that question next time, rather than lose that customer because they've got frustrated. But it is a really important process to be able to properly get under the skin of the customer. We've done a fair bit of work with Palex, and the risk a lot of the time when you've got an organisation coming to you, they'll always come to you and say, "We want this. This is the thing that we want." Our leadership, our leader, they're not necessarily saying this is the case with Palex, but usually with an organisation, they'll come to you saying, "My boss has asked me to get this thing built." Because the beauty is human beings are solution driven, right? We don't like seeing problems. We just want to solve problems all the time. Solve problems. So what we're really big on kind of making sure that we need to understand the business objective. So why do they want the thing? Is it because they think it's fun, or is it because they've actually got business objectives that they're trying to meet? So we need to really understand what are the objectives and what are the goals, because that's the only way you can measure the success of a project.
That's right. Well, it gives you KPIs.
It gives you KPIs. Yeah, you can go, actually, has it done this? Has it reduced inquiries by X? Has it streamlined the way that has it streamlined our work in the warehouse by X%? And then you can go away and rather than making scoping a project based off people who are in a leadership position who probably haven't done the role for 10, 15, 20 years, you go down and have a conversation, and you spend a day in a lorry with a lorry driver and understand and talk to them about the role, talk to them how they're working, sit and experience how they do things, whether there's whether there's corners being cut, why the corners being cut. Do those things need to actually happen? Are they actually vital, or actually do not those things need to happen?
Well, that's where the process optimization comes in, isn't it? Because actually we're really, really good as humans on joining up the process and fixing a process by using what we do and our humanity, but it's actually a robotic process in between one and the other, so we've done something that's just repetitive because we know it needs to be fixed to get our job done, if you like. And
also doing that in isolation, and doing it in isolation as well. We run a workshop with an organisation I want to say 4 years ago. It might not have been that long ago. And the organisation has just gone for a merger, and we went in the room. And usually we're the strangers in the room because we're the strangers to some extent with everybody else. They don't know who we are. We went in the room and pretty much no one in the room knew each other. I think there's like 15 people in the room, and you'd find pockets. But actually getting in the room and talking about what was going on, talking about kind of the way that each of them do things and how they work at the moment. They were like, "Oh no, we've solved that problem. Like we've already done that. We've solution," and they were able to share those experiences as to where the problem's been solved. Wow. And you might find if you're having a meeting, for example, if we're on a road with a lorry driver, they might find a problem and solved it for themselves.
But nobody knows.
Nobody knows. So it's like from going in and having those conversations, you can build up that understanding, and then going in and talking to other customers who are at the point when those deliveries are being made, or talking to people who work in the warehouse who are there kind of having to put the elements onto lorries, and what the process is in regards to how they plan it. By having those conversations, you're in a position to be able to design a much better system. Because now digital has become ubiquitous in everything pretty much that we do. You've got the lorry driver. Yes, the lorry driver has a mobile application that does X, Y, and Z, but there's also a management system in the background that feeds the information. And yes, we can design something, but unless we understand the nuances of the systems that's being used, we have to take that into consideration.
I had a big conversation with somebody who was a facilities management consultant, and he's done this for years, and he's really, really good. But he was saying that there's still a massive gap again, and right down to the bottom, where you've got somebody that turns up to a facility. So in this case, it's supermarkets, and they've got say chill cabinets and stuff like that. So they're all refridge units and things like that. Then they need to keep going. There's continuity. You know, it's really important, that whole refrigeration chain of your food from where it gets refrigerated, delivered, and then put into store. All those layers do all have to be continuous temperature and all that type of stuff. So servicing and keeping those things maintained is massive. And he's still seeing, the companies he was working for, he's still seeing that somebody was there outside the supermarket, an engineer with his feet on the dash, going he went, "What, are you having a break?" He said, no, this job's off now. I'm going to wait until my next job." So why? He said, "Parts aren't here, so I'm not. I've turned up. I've just driven 80 miles to get here, but there's no parts here for me to do it. So I'm going to turn around and do the next one. But I'm, whatever." And of course, totally demoralized, totally broken. The whole, him as a customer within his own organization's broken because there's a break in the chain of the fact that the delivery isn't done. There's no communication where the delivery is going to arrive. They've got problems with parts getting lost in store because nobody in the supermarket cares whether there's something there or not. Because they get how many deliveries a day, and then this part comes and it's gone missing. Huge part. 500 quid's worth of stuff. It's just gone missing. Not because it's nicked or anything, just because nobody knows where it is, and they're these big units. But that whole design,
understand that flow,
and they've got applications that have got this stuff, but the right information for that person has not gone in. So that user experience that you're talking about is broken because their internal customer experience has not been considered. And it's exactly what you're talking about.
And again, it could be completely functional. Your development team might be there like, "Oh, it's brilliant, like everything's working, there's no bugs." Completely forgetting that actually the person in the background is there getting infuriated with the experience, and ultimately then companies are losing team members because they're getting frustrated. There's a really interesting example.
And they're switching, so the staff turnover is huge for that layer. So they're just going, "Now I'm going to work for somebody else." It's exactly the same job. It just gets delivered another van.
And there's more impact that as well. There's another example. I was at an event, I can't remember how long ago it was in London, and there was a guy from Cambridge who had been doing some data. I think he did some systems analysis work for a warehousing company or one of those fulfillment centers. And there was a company, he was doing loads of analysis of the work that was going on there and how they were doing their business. There was some friction going on between the business and one of their suppliers. Because everything ended up being delivered late on their system. Everything was being delivered late, and they were getting really frustrated with their system was telling them everything was arriving a day late. All the time it was arriving a day late. Now, when the analyst went in, he went in and realized the delivery didn't go in late. It came in the last 5 minutes of someone's shifts, and that person then didn't log it into the system. Right. It didn't get logged into the system until the next day.
And that was the date. And that was the date that was in the UX that said this is what's happened. Whereas they should have had something that said, when did it arrive? It arrived yesterday. Not the log of the entry.
So the only way you really get around that and see those problems is actually have a conversation, like be around. Right. Understand how the system works, have the conversation with the people who are using the experience. You get so much, whether that's understanding what data the person needs, whether that's understanding when they're going to be using the system, when they're understanding what systems that they're already using in place. You can even use it if you work with customers from a competitor analysis point of view, because you can understand what other platforms that they're using, what other platforms that they need to be similar to. As well as understanding where it fits in their lives. And when you're building projects where there's quite a lot of emotional impact as well, you need to make sure you get that right.
No, absolutely. I suppose from a listener's perspective or viewers, because we're doing videos and all sorts now, didn't do me hair or nothing.
I'll just roll out of bed, as most people can tell if
Oh,
they've seen the video.
absolutely, yeah. Well, I know that. Yeah. But the how do you go about that? Because we're talking about heat maps and stuff earlier. This is so somebody needs to lead a research project to do that and go and talk to people. I'm assuming. That's the only way you're going to do it, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, we're quite fortunate. So we have, as an agency, we have a dedicated user researcher internally.
Right.
So when we're looking to take on a project, they would form a core part of our delivery team. They would be the person who goes into the business, kind of really builds an understanding of how the business works, sits down with people who are doing, if we're doing an internal project, sits down with people who are doing the jobs. If we're doing or if it's in a manufacturing business, go around, interview, have conversations, kind of understand the process that they're going through, and they would be bringing that insight. They would be collating that and bringing that in for us to be able to look at, and us working together with the client and going, this is the information that we found, this is how it works. For organizations looking to do it, it's a case of going, do you look to bring someone externally in? Do you understand the problem that you're trying to solve? Have you been able to understand that there's inefficiencies in certain areas? Or are you purely interested if there are opportunities to do something better?
Yeah. And that's a massive added value to have that information. Like I said, all those examples that we've just been talking about of, the missed links and somebody's fixed something that they didn't know they were doing, all those things. Massive value proposition in its own right, because the savings are huge. They're taking that FM thing, I just know they were hemorrhaging money, and also ultimately hemorrhaging clients. And supermarket clients aren't that, they don't grow on trees. There are a finite number of those people around, and they only have to switch contracts, and you could be closing the business because of something simple that's in the chain of events that needs to be fixed, that actually isn't that complicated to do if the communication's right and the UX supports the customer experience, and off you go.
Yeah, exactly. Better myself.
Yeah. Good. All right. Well, that's really interesting, Gavin. That was superb. I don't know what we got on time. I have no idea. I forgot to time ourselves as well. So
I did write
if we've ran
down,
over, sorry everybody. We could carry on all day about this subject, but that was really interesting. I suppose if anybody wants to has got questions about that, then comment on the podcast. We can do that, or just get in touch, and we can maybe pick up the questions and answer them next time. But thanks very much, everybody. That's great.
Thank you everyone for listening.
All right, cheers. Thanks for listening to the Self-Service Generation podcast. We hope you enjoyed it and found it interesting. Look out for more in the series, where we take deep dives around specific challenges in this space. Until next time.